Hi there, and welcome to this week's episode of the Australian Small Business Show. Matt, how are you?
Great, Christy Lee. How are you today?
I'm really well. Before we get into this episode, we've got another reminder for our listeners. The waitlist is now open for the Australian Small Business Club. If I could get the name right, we'd love you to join the waitlist.
Yeah, definitely.
Do you want to tell
Come
everyone
over,
a little bit about it?
come over to the website. We're building a community for isolated small business owners. Um, Share your wins, get some advice, get some tips. We'll be there every step of the way.
Yeah, it's basically a community where you'll be able to connect with other small business owners, connect with Matt and I, a safe space to come and, get support, vent, share your wins, and also when things aren't going so well.
Yep.
And, for us to all support each other as business owners. So it's not going to be a pitch fest or a salesy kind of sleazy networking place because I don't like them. But it's going to be a casual place for business owners to connect. So come and join
Yeah,
the wait list.
an extension of the podcast, really.
100% an extension of the podcast is exactly it. And we're going to be launching really soon, under $10 a month for our founding members. So head over to the australiansmallbusinessshow.com.au and join the waitlist right there. Okay, I did it first. So what are we talking about today?
Today, I want to talk about um, a business owner being the bottleneck in their own business.
Yeah. And in fact, Matt wanted to call the episode Founders Bottleneck. And I said, does anyone actually call themselves a founder? So that created its own debate. So maybe we do a whole episode on what you call yourself as a business owner, because I think there's no consensus, but that's a whole other episode.
Yeah, being a founder is a bit naff, isn't it? Founder and CEO of a
Well,
small
I think
business.
I think there is, a founder feels like someone that's founded a movement, which is great.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Yeah, I just don't know that it's the word. I definitely see it in use in some spaces very
What
specifically.
what are you called?
Well, I formally call myself CEO because I think I should.
Yeah.
I don't know. I called myself director for a long time.
Yeah, I'm director. My
Yeah.
email signature has director on it, I
Yeah, my
guess.
email signature's got CEO, but then I think a lot of people don't
Yeah.
really feel
I've
like
never
that's the right
I-
title either.
I've never wanted to be an accounting partner, and I guess that's why I don't call myself partner, which is essentially
Yeah.
what I am in the
Yeah,
accounting
in that
firm,
business, in
in
that
that
specific
business for
business.
sure.
Yeah. So, anyway, today we are talking about when you become the bottleneck in your business, whatever you call yourself. I guess how to identify if we're becoming the bottleneck and some of the pitfalls when we do become the bottleneck, and maybe some little ideas to get yourself out of being the bottleneck.
Well, I think it's difficult to know when you're kind of inside your business. I think it's more people will notice looking into your business that there is a bottleneck, whereas
Yeah.
you might not notice it. And there is some things to look out for, though, and that's essentially around, well, essentially the bottleneck is when your business can no longer grow,
Hmm.
um, even though
Would
the
allow for
markets
it.
would allow for it.
Mm.
Your product would allow for it. Your marketing would allow for it. Maybe your leads and all that kind of stuff would allow for it, but your business isn't growing because you essentially are holding it back, which means that your business can only be as big as how many hours a week you put into it.
I definitely think that's one sign that you're the bottleneck, that you've got a growth problem. And that's sometimes because it's the hours you can put into it. It's sometimes because you're a control freak and you can't delegate effectively. And a lot of the owners I work with in my Power Boss program, this is them. And this was definitely me for a season in business where I would hand things over, but then they'd be back on my desk because I wanted final view or final decision or final whatever. And I became the bottleneck very quickly. And I think once you've been there, it's much easier to identify when it starts happening again. But yeah, the first one or two times you go through it, you're so busy that you don't realize you're the bottleneck
Yeah, it is that sign off, isn't it? It's basically saying I don't want anything to go out of this
anywhere.
business unless I've given it a tick.
Yeah, I've got clients that check everyone's emails, like even internal emails. It's like,
Right?
yeah, bonkers. But the challenge is entrepreneurs by their very nature can sometimes also be control freaks. Like the two
Yeah.
do coexist a lot of the time. So it's a challenge for us personally, and I've lived through this challenge to let go. You got to figure out what you can let go of and what's critical for you to view.
Yeah.
And that happens as you grow. It's part of your growth as a business owner as well.
Well, I guess if you think about it, you start these businesses on your own. We
Hmm.
start the business by ourselves. We create all the processes.
Yep.
And we create them around maybe we've started a business because we want to have a bit of a work lifestyle thing. So we created the processes around that and
Mm.
things like that. So when it comes to bringing people into your business, um, it can be a case of going, it's just easier for me to continue doing it that way.
Well, and the challenge is we always do things faster. So I constantly tell my clients, whatever time it takes you, double it, or for some of my clients, I might even say triple it. And that's the expectation you should put on the staff member. But in the meantime, what we always do is say it's just quicker if I do it myself. Because the time it takes to, in the initial phases, to
Yep.
delegate something, that will take longer the first few
Yep.
times that happens. But you're, I guess, investing time now to free up your time in the future. But a lot of business owners can't get through that first pain hurdle of it's just quicker if I do it myself.
Yeah, and there's little things I think too. It's probably the language you're using in the business, which is a lot like just
Mm.
check with me first. All
Yep.
that kind of stuff would really create that environment where people, it's not just you eventually being causing the bottleneck,
Mm.
but it's not just your behavior that's creating the bottleneck. You're actually training your staff to help you create
Mm.
that bottleneck as well.
100%. Because every time you swoop in and take it back over, or, say it has to be checked by you, what you're actually doing is training your team members not to think for themselves and not to be proactive, and that they'll get in trouble potentially. So the cycle kind of perpetuates.
Yeah, it's them being nervous, I guess, that they can't
Of
act on
course.
their own
Yeah,
because
they
that.
don't think they're allowed to. Like I've got a
Yep.
client at the moment I'm working with, and one of their team members literally will not make a move without sign off because so many times she's been told that what she did once was perfect, and when she did the exact same thing the next time, it wasn't. So she's just gone, oh, too hard, not going to do it. So you are training them. So that's definitely part of the problem. I think one of the other symptoms that you're the bottleneck is you're working more hours than anyone else in the business. You're the busiest person in the business.
But
That
it's
means you're the
that,
bottleneck.
yeah, like I see that a lot. I still see it now with people that I work around, that number of hours under the desk equals quality, and it equals
Mm.
effort. It equals, I'm doing more hours than you, so therefore I'm doing more in this business.
Well, it's your business. I mean, to an extent, that should be the reality that you should be doing more than anyone you're paying. However, I think, I work with business owners that actually only get to the part of doing the running of the business at night because they're spending all day putting out fires. If they're the ones doing that, they're definitely the bottleneck.
Yeah, that's like having to manage every relationship with customers, all these things that you should be getting your team to do for you. You think you've got to do it on your own, so you can't get to your bookkeeping and you can't get to your,
Yeah.
your budgeting, all that kind of stuff, and your marketing ideas, all those things that you should be doing as a small business owner.
Mm.
You can't get to them because you're running around with your head cut off.
Yeah, I think you just touched on something else there when you said bookkeeping. Being too slow to outsource is
Yeah.
another way you will quickly become a bottleneck. Like there's a lot of times where you should be outsourcing your bookkeeping, or you should be outsourcing your graphic design, or anything else in your business, and trying to hold on to everything, like you said earlier, stagnates your growth, but it also means you will constantly be the bottleneck.
Yeah, that's right. So, and like, I think there's other reasons too, like things like feeling guilty as well that you're not, you're putting too much down on your team. Is there something in that in terms of, I started this business, this is my idea. Now I've got all these people doing things for me. Is there a certain guilt there as a small business owner?
I think the guilt that I see more is they've got a sense of responsibility for the livelihood of their team. So they
Yeah.
think that if they're not keeping this business running really well, they're going to let their team down, and sometimes protect their team from the reality. And I'm not saying that's wrong either, but I don't think it's so much a sense of guilt that they don't want to pass things down to their team. I think it's they haven't learned how to particularly effectively more often.
Yeah. So we're saying team a lot here. So there's obviously ways from a HR perspective to help
Mm,
break this bottleneck.
yeah. Yeah. Look, it's probably one of the topics I talk about the most, but I often talk about creating a buffer role, for example. So when you get to about 7 staff, you will start to notice that the cracks are appearing. Things
Yeah.
things that worked when you had 3 staff suddenly don't work when you've got 7, 8, 9, 10 staff. And it's often the time that I want to start talking to a business owner about creating a buffer role, like which is a role that sits somewhere between them and their team. And that doesn't have to, it absolutely at that size shouldn't be a general manager or an ops manager, but
Yeah.
it might be in like a an executive assistant or a VA who can field things. It might be team leaders. It could be a 2IC kind of role. It could be, allied health businesses will put a practice manager in, for example. There's
Yeah.
lots of different ways that can take shape, but that is usually a really critical point because you will have become the bottleneck. Like there's almost no getting around it at that point. And you've got to get yourself out of the weeds of doing that.
Yeah.
And the buffer role when you hit that 7 to 10 staff is definitely one of the key ways
So,
I help clients with that.
so one of the first tasks you'd probably give that buffer role is, working out what's broken here in terms of freeing up that bottleneck in terms of the systems and all that kind of
Sometimes.
stuff. You get them onto that rather than just offloading some of the busy tasks that you're doing as a small business owner. You really want to get them working and looking at what's creating that bottleneck.
Sometimes it's the systems. Most often at that size, it's the fielding all the people. It's the putting out of the fires. It's the someone's
Yeah.
computer's not working. Previously, you were the only one that could fix that. Now this new person can fix that. So it's taking away that firefighting from the team and being
Yeah.
that conduit where the team put the leave requests into this person or, just those things that take up time and are important, but time consuming and not high level work. Like it stops you from doing the thinking and the strategy and the planning and the things you need to do.
Well, I'm going through it right now. I've
Mm-hmm.
and I I'll say bad experience, but it wasn't a bad experience in terms of I did grow a successful business prior to the business, the accounting business I have now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but what came with that was the employing of a lot of people.
Yeah.
So from my perspective, this time around, I've tried to. I was conscious of what I was capable of doing, essentially with a smaller team.
Mm-hmm.
But as this is growing, I'm finding things becoming a little bit exponential in terms of,
Yep.
um, the inquiries that are coming through in terms of, say, setting up a new self-managed super fund. I could easily manage those whilst managing the client base, whilst managing the marketing, whilst doing all this other stuff. Now those inquiries have grown quite a lot. They're taking up a great deal of my time.
And
And
I've also been telling you for about 12 months that half the things you do are so routine and repetitive
they
that
are, but
you
it's
could literally train anyone to do it.
I think my point is that I'm creating a bottleneck due to past bad experience in I don't really want to go down the path of hiring
Yeah, and actually, I
too
do
many
see
more
this a
people.
lot. I call it the yo-yo effect, where someone grows a team, maybe they get it to 5 staff, and then something happens and it's not a good experience for them. And so they shrink the team back down to the bare minimum of whatever the business can take at that time,
Yeah,
which might be 2 or 3. And then they start to grow again and they might get to 7, and then the same thing happens again. So they shrink back down, and it's kind of this yo-yoing, and they can never push past that point because they're either not learning from their bad experience, which does happen, or they're just scared of having that bad experience again. And so they want to avoid that at all costs. And that means, and I see tradies do this all the time, stuff it. I'm just going to have just me and my son, or just me
I'm
and
going
my
to do the
wife running
quoting
it.
myself
I'm
and
going to
that
do
kind
the,
of stuff.
like, I'm
Yeah,
not having apprentices anymore. Like they just go, it's just easier for me to be on the tools and do it myself and maybe have a contractor help me or something, and the
yeah,
wife can do the books. That's very stereotypical. But I see them do that where they just go, it's all too hard. I'd rather be on the tools.
yeah. So from my perspective, the bad experience is that I want to provide a really personal service. So what I notice in my industry is that it's possible to a point, and at some point in time, that is virtually impossible. I can't manage 500 people. I can manage a couple hundred people, but I can't manage 500 people. So
Yeah, but why
it,
does personal have to come from you? Can't the business provide a personal service via a well-trained team member?
I think we've ended up going in circles there. I think it's because I know I can do it better.
Yeah. And so, but then in that case, if that's a business, if we're thinking about our listeners here who are thinking, yep, that's me too, the challenge becomes what is it that you can offload that doesn't impact the bit that
Yeah,
you absolutely want to be the point of contact for, incredible customer service, or you know, being the problem solver of all these technical issues, like whatever it is that you want to be the one doing, you get to make that choice and you get to build a team around you that fills in the bits that you don't want to be doing or the bits you never get to.
yeah,
So
exactly.
that paperwork shuffling that happens in your world, that can be done by someone else and not take away from you being the customer service point if that's what you wanted. So I think that's a really important lesson as we grow our businesses. And this is when you're growing from just being you to having a team or a bigger team or multiple teams. You get to choose what your role is. And I so often see business owners who grow their teams and I ask them what they're doing. And it's basically the scraps of what no one
Yeah.
else has been allocated or wants to do, or they don't have the skills to do. And it's certainly not what lights them up. And it's definitely not why they started their business. And I say, you get to choose your role and you should be choosing your role first. And that can be, often become a bit of oh, didn't know that was an option for me.
Yeah, I think that takes some courage as well to be able to sit there and go, because I know from my own experiences that adding an employee, a full-time employee, um, it's quite scary as you're going up. It's like, well, generally what happens is you have to have excess capacity for a while, and then you,
Well, I think people hire too late. I think that's a big challenge too. And growth doesn't have to equal a full-time employee. Growth
yeah,
can equal an outsourced VA, and we've had a few experts talk to us about using outsourced VAs. Growth can look like a casual or a part-timer. There's the growth can look like outsourcing. So there's growth options that do not require permanent employees. And in fact, your first growth option should not be a permanent
yeah,
employee, I don't think.
I agree. I agree with that.
Yeah. So we've got different bottleneck points that we hit. These are all symptoms of when we're hitting those bottlenecks. I think the message is if you want to grow your business, it can't grow while you are the bottleneck.
Well, there's a revenue, there's a ceiling there, right? It has to be a ceiling, particularly at
Well,
the
and you've only
moment.
got so many hours in the week.
Yep. And we're talking, yeah, a couple of weeks ago, we talked about pricing and costs of running a business and stuff where we're kind of, other than, finding more hours in the day, you have to increase your prices to make more money. If you
Mm.
become that bottleneck, then you're absolutely going to have a ceiling in your business.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm a big fan of a business model that doesn't require your time being the only currency, although that is a 50% of my current business model. I'm definitely trying to shift away from that, and I encourage everyone to. But like, you can't have a business that gives you success by however you want to measure that in your world, and that gives you any sense of freedom from that business without the right team. And that might start with VAs, outsourced options, ultimately employees. But without that, you will be the bottleneck. Every holiday you take will require your mobile phone to be constantly available to you. You will be fielding calls from customers at all hours instead of seeing your kids play sport. Growth requires courage, and that courage often involves inviting people to support you in your business in some capacity.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think another thing too is as small business owners, and it's something that I do from time to time, and it's something you remind me to do from time to time, is check your hourly rate.
Yeah. I'm about to do a little audit on one of my clients because I suspect my hourly rate is horrendously low for that client and we may need to make an adjustment. But it is because we offer and we're generous with our time. We are all wanting to help. That's why we're in business. And then suddenly we realize we're working for $2 an hour and it's not the way it should be.
Awesome.
Right. So if you feel like you're the bottleneck in your business, or if this conversation has sparked some thoughts for you, come and let us know on our socials. We'd love to hear from you. You can send us a DM if you don't want to publicly comment. We are totally fine with that. You can find both Matt and I on Instagram and LinkedIn. I think Matt's over on TikTok. You will not find me there. Um,
And
and the
YouTube
Australian
as
Small
well.
Business Show on YouTube as well. Absolutely.
Yeah,
You can
come
find
and
the
come and
Australian
check out
Small
our
Business Show.
YouTube channel. Every Friday I upload a episode. So if you've been listening to us and you want to see us, it's on YouTube.
And as a little bonus, you might even get to see Matt's virtual background, which includes Gypsy the pod dog.
Gypsy the Pod Dog.
Gypsy the pod dog. Fantastic. All right. Thanks, Matt. We'll be back again next week with a new episode.
Thanks, Christy.